Hello, Jenny. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you on today.
Hello, Val. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited too. There are so many different topics that we are going to be able to talk about today. Creativity, eco-friendly painting, which is something that I'm discovering as I followed your journey on social media, and a lot of other things as well, because you are a multi-dimensional human, which is, something you can see directly on all of your mediums online. But first, can you introduce yourself in the way that you want?
Yeah, I'm Jenny McCarty. I'm an ecologist and artist, and I create wildlife and nature art for people that love the outdoors.
Awesome. I love to ask this question that way because depending on the cultures, on the, I guess, occupation too, people introduce themselves in different ways. Yeah, I guess work is usually where it starts. So maybe we'll start with that and your activity that you're doing right now. You're now mostly known as an activist on social media and an artist. What has been your journey towards creativity in your life?
Well, I've always been very creative. I've always been an artist. I loved to paint and draw since I could hold a crayon and a pencil. And in high school, I was taking advanced placement art classes. I was also taking advanced placement in sciences. And I think, like many, especially women that are from the 90s, there was this push in schools to get more girls into STEM. And so if you were smart and you were good at STEM, you were pushed towards the sciences and math and engineering and all those things. And we were almost educated out of art and the creative side of our brain, music, dance, whatever someone maybe was interested in. So I was told art was not a viable career choice, and I pursued the sciences, which I'm really happy to have. I love the science just as much as I love the art. And now, decades later, I feel that the science really informs my art. And so I am a trained ecologist. I have a master's in stream ecology. I've worked in water quality for domestic homes and small commercial properties. I've done field work and conservation all across the globe in places like East Africa, New Zealand, Alaska, and all across the United States. And as I continued to grow my science career, a lot of that work ended up being more indoors. As you climb the ladder, you're doing more project management, more computer work, and I hit a burnout wall. And I just found that my for life, my energy wasn't there so much for the work anymore. And I'm very lucky in my day job that we're given a career coach. And she said, Jenny, we can't manage your workload because you need to come to work and do your work, but we can manage your energy levels. What is it that you find flow in? And I'd always found flow when painting and drawing. So I started painting and drawing again after almost a decade away, and I found I couldn't stop. But when I started painting and drawing was very different than what I did in school, and that was informed a lot by my ecology career. I realized that a lot of the materials I was using in school weren't actually healthy for me. They weren't healthy for the environment. And so I completely switched to finding more eco-friendly and healthy options for my home and our planet as well.
Okay, before we dive into that topic of like more eco-friendly materials when painting, can you tell us more? I love this idea of, and I completely resonate with it, kind of putting opposite forces when we were growing up between science and art, and having to really, out of, I guess, necessity to find a job or to be in a stable career, go towards, science in high school. For us in France, it's like you have to go, if you want any study field available to you at university, you have to go through a science path in high school. And then the
Interesting.
second option is like economy. And then the third is literature and anything creative. And usually you go down the ladder as you choose, literature and creativity. I resonate with you on that, I had both brains within me. And I chose a science career and did biomedical engineering and all of it before I actually turned towards something that I really like. And
Oh,
I
that
wonder how, this has now moving to art. How did you shift, I guess, your identity within that? And or do you find any struggle in that sense of belonging to a certain world, or have you completely reconciled both?
That's a personal question. That's good. It's digging deep. First of all, I love that you were in the biomedical field and have also turned to creativity. I actually find that a lot of people in the sciences have a creative outlet, whether it's music or writing or art in some way, because I think to be a good scientist, you have to be able to think creatively. So using both sides of the brain. And as far as reconciling for me, when I started doing art, when I chose to pursue it as a business, I really had to feel confident in telling people I'm an artist. And that actually took a lot of emotional work because I think our generation in particular, we're told that artists don't make any money. They're also aloof people. They're not organized. They're disorganized. They maybe aren't always the most perceptive or successful when it comes to business. And I think that those are all stereotypes that are very inaccurate. And especially for people who are educated in the sciences or in other realms, I feel that those skills that we learned feed very well into being successful in a creative way because we learn those organizational skills. And so it got me thinking that maybe artists are given these stereotypes because they're not actually being taught those skills in coursework. So for artists that actually go through university and experience that, a lot of it is more around how to create the art, what is traditional art, what the art should look like. And it's very little of it is about how do you organize a spreadsheet? How do you organize a business? How do you write really well to go after a grant? Those kinds of things. And so when I realized that it's actually these stereotypes around artists, it's an educational disservice to the people who go through art curriculum. I realized that no, I can be very confident and I am an artist and I'm a scientist and I do both very well. So I've learned to, when I meet people, put out my hand and say, I'm an ecologist and I'm an artist and say it proudly. I'm curious what that transition was like for you going from science to a creative field.
Well, I'm with someone that is in academia, he's completely stayed in the biomedical field. And so I'm so constantly connected to that world of research and, in a sense, biomedical engineering too, that I feel like my brain is still within this space. And I somehow in my day to day just do like creative work for social media, but I have not connected in my head. Like I'm more a business owner than an artist in any way, shape, or form. But I find so much, joy and healing in, for me, it's not painting, it's more writing. And I discover more and more that like art in a sense is just, I do believe that we all have this innate creative mind within us. And it's only a matter of like giving it space and just maybe sometimes even just structure if you need it, and to just make sure you are, just carving that time out to practice it, because I don't think it's necessarily just born out of talent. I think it's more a connection to yourself and the world around you.
I think that's beautifully said. You're essentially nurturing that part that's within you and allowing it to have space.
Yeah,
That's great. Yeah.
that's
Do
that's
you,
truly what
for,
I believe.
that's great. For the writing, is it mostly social media or do you write fiction or poetry or all of the above? Anything you can write, you're writing?
Not poetry, short stories in fiction, and
Cool.
also I journal quite extensively. It's an everyday practice, if I can, when I'm not in like so much of a rush. But yeah, I just, anything I can, I write down.
Good for you. That's awesome.
That's been my practice over the last 2 years. But yeah, I
Wow.
did not have that before, and I can see there's been a shift almost in my brain chemistry when I implemented that.
That is very cool. There's actually a great book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called The Artist's Way.
Yeah.
And yes, and as a painter, people don't often think that there's a lot of writing that helps inform painting, but it all goes hand in hand. At the end of the day, words are so important, and being able to share a story behind a piece effectively is critical. And words, being able to write well is, I think, just important in anything, whether it's science, art, writing, journalism, social media, all the things.
100%.
Mhm.
You've mentioned it's something I want to go back to because I think it maybe shaped your experience with, ecology. You lived in 4 different countries,
Yes.
which really exposed you to so many different types of, environments, communities, governments. Can you tell us more about this experience living abroad?
It was amazing. I am so grateful. I also have to acknowledge that I'm very privileged. Not everybody gets to have the experiences that I have had. And I chose a university in undergrad that in the United States is number 2 in the country for sending students abroad. It's generally a requirement. And so I chose that explicitly for the global experiences. And for my study abroad, I lived in East Africa and then in New Zealand. I took a full year, and East Africa was incredible. The people, the community, they have so much less in so many ways than people in Western, more developed nations. And it really opened my eyes to the way we in communities. And it's very easy to be in our air-conditioned homes, our heated homes, for instance, in the United States or in Europe, and say, oh, people shouldn't be bushmeat hunting the elephants, people shouldn't be bushmeat hunting zebras, etc. But at the end of the day, I I learned that if the difference is between eating a zebra or someone's children going hungry, they're going to eat the zebra. And I can't fault them for that. I would hope that if I was put in the same situation, I'd do the same thing to feed my family. So it got me really thinking about conservation and how we in the Western world can't go into places like that and say, you can't eat the zebra anymore. You can't eat the elephant anymore. You can't hunt the elephant for their tusks. We have to come in with viable solutions that uplift communities, that create opportunities in their economies, that create food resources, that create health and public health and safety resources. And a lot of that actually comes through funding female small businesses. In a lot of these communities, there's a significant tie between how well women do and how well the communities do. So thinking through conservation that way, also thinking through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for instance, people need food, they need water, they need shelter. And once those things are met, then they can start thinking about higher levels of belonging, higher levels of importance. And that's where naturalism comes into play. You and me, all of our other lower needs are met. And so we can think about pressures on our planet. We can think about climate change. We can think about these more abstract existential threats because our immediate needs are met. And so it had me thinking about, how do communities just have clean drinking water? How do communities dispose of their waste so they're not impacting their food and water resources? All these basics. And that really drove me into water resources, into conservation, and also fuels a lot of the conservation giving back that I do through my art business to help those communities and help conservation in a way that starts at that grassroots level, because we're not going to succeed in conservation if we don't help the people first.
Love it. Can you tell us more about this framework that you've pretty much installed from the beginning, I believe, of giving back?
Yes, honestly, the art would not exist without my conservation mission in life and vice versa. So from the day I started the business, I've dedicated 10% of every sale to conservation organizations. These are organizations like the National Park Conservation Association, which does a lot of work here in the United States, the Nature Conservancy, which does a lot of work globally, the Jane Goodall Institute. She's my hero. She's the greatest of all time. So
I love
we
her
we
too.
yeah, I think that's my only regret in life, is not being able to meet her in person. We look for organizations doing really good work. And then the fourth one is water.org, and they go into communities and help ensure that they've got clean water resources. And that helps take one of those daily pressures off of people so they can start thinking about other things like conservation.
How cool. That's incredible. I love how you
Thank you.
just from the get-go made sure everything was all encompassing in your mission. Really admire, yeah, your work and everything you've put into place to make it work.
Thank you.
You live in Colorado, which from
Yes.
an outsider perspective is this Greenland incredible space where people ski in the winter, where, life in the summer is also super cool with activities and everything. But from your incredible art, anyone can see on social media. If you haven't seen Jenny's artwork, please have a look. She is so talented. And I can tell that there are obvious inspirations from Colorado. Can you tell us more about Colorado, your attachment to this place, and also maybe if not Colorado, like the places that have inspired you, or the animals, the wildlife that have inspired you for your art?
Yeah. I actually heard this term recently that I have a self-diagnosed IBE, inspired by everything.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, so I have self-diagnosed IBE, and I'm very fortunate. I grew up here in Colorado, and that's a state in the United States that's positioned right in the middle of the United States on top of the Rocky Mountains, which is a very large mountain chain that runs from Canada down into near the southern end of the United States. And we have more 14ers in Colorado than any other state in meters. I don't know, what is that? Mountains over 3,000 meters, 5,000. I'm
Yeah,
terrible at math.
probably.
Yeah, yeah. But they're known as 14ers here, so over 14,000 feet, and nature is abundant. It's a state full of people who love the outdoors, fishing, hiking, camping, biking, a lot of hunting as well. Originally, the state was founded on gold mining, and then that turned to ranching. And so it's a very diverse state with a lot of different connections to the outdoors. Growing up here was wonderful. My family camped constantly, and I grew up riding horses and then working on horse and cattle ranches during the summers, which constant inspiration. And that's why you'll see I paint horses often too, because that's going back to my roots.
Love it.
And yeah, it's wonderful. I also, much of my family is from California, which is on the western coast of the United States and the ocean. And there's a part of me that's always been drawn to the sea. And so, no matter what ecosystem I'm in, whether it's the mountains, the plains, and the prairie, or the ocean, I am just so in awe of Mother Nature and what she gives us in these beautiful moments that remind us how small and insignificant we are in the big scheme of things, but also the incredible beauty and the perfection. I'm sure you can appreciate this too from the science perspective, that evolution is incredible. Just the amount of biodiversity and species evolved for these very specialized niches. It's fascinating and perfect. And so anything I'm seeing out in nature, whether it's light shining through aspen leaves, or watching animals do what they do best, or even hearing an ecosystem story about how wildlife and nature interacts with itself, everything is inspiring. I have IBE. I'm inspired by everything.
I love IBE. I
Yeah.
think I will auto-diagnose myself as
Yeah.
IBE. I absolutely love it. How cool. Yeah, I think we see in Europe those vast states in the US live in those wonderful spaces and with these amazing species. I mean, there is one artwork that you did that I love, which is the whale.
The whale
It's
shark.
incredible, incredible
Thank you.
artwork.
Did you know there's actually a hidden heart in the whale shark spots in that one?
Ah, I didn't know.
Yeah, so that's one of the things I love to do, is hide little secrets to be found in my paintings. And whale sharks, they have unique spot prints, just like your fingerprint. And so that's how scientists are able to identify individuals. And so I've hidden a little heart in the spots in that one.
I love it. I'll go try and find it. Can you tell us maybe more about the role that you had before becoming an artist in water resource management, and yeah, what that entailed, and after studying biology and ecology, like what were you doing because it is directly connected to also some of the work that you do today, but more from a, I guess, science perspective?
I've held several different jobs. Out of college, I was working in domestic and small commercial water treatment and really just ensuring that people's homes had clean drinking water. And that was an interesting lesson learned because it doesn't matter if someone's a multimillionaire and has a big, beautiful home, or if someone's living in a little cabin. When people are out of water, everyone panics the same way. It doesn't matter how much money you have. And then I went on to do a lot of field work. I worked for what used to be called long-term ecological research, and we did everything from fire studies to how salmon swimming up rivers impact the stream bank health, kind of this riparian transition between streams and the land nearby and how nutrients move across that distance. And I've worked with greater sage grouse, which are an endangered species in the United States across the plains. They're also known as prairie chickens. They're pretty funny. I've worked with a lot of insects. I think people don't often think about insects. It's only in the last 10 years or so that insects continue to be a part of the conservation conversation because they're so important in the food chain and they are disappearing faster than any other animal group. So I've done a lot of work with insects. And now I have a day job and I love my day job as well. I'm in water resources. I'm a program manager for local government, and we manage everything around watershed health for the entire community. So in our community, we have everything from local agriculture and growing local food. We have municipalities. We have people who love to recreate in the streams, and we also have ecosystems to think about. And in Colorado, we're actually a desert state. We think of Colorado as green, but it's actually brown most of the year. And
Okay.
yeah, and we're seeing snowpack disappear. Snowpack is
Wow.
our most important resource. We're seeing it disappear with climate change, and water is becoming scarcer and scarcer. So my role is to help ensure that there's enough water to go around and everybody plays nice in the sandbox and shares. And it's very meaningful work. It's work I love to do. I alluded to this earlier. It also informs the way that I paint. All my paints are healthy to go back into the waterways, and that's not true for a lot of art materials. So my art and my science talk to one another.
Yeah. Okay, let's I love this, and I think I could just have a podcast on your day job. But we could I feel like we need to put a much brighter light on art and paint supplies and what they actually entail, especially when you grab them from your usual, paint store.
Mhm.
What did you learn after diving into like more eco-friendly alternatives?
Yeah, this is actually a topic most people don't necessarily want to talk about, or it feels taboo because artists are these untouchable people that always do right by the planet. And that's unfortunately, we're consumers just like everybody else. And the paints that I grew up on, like acrylics and oils, people don't actually realize that they are based off petroleum products. They're made from petroleum products. Acrylic, it's in the name, and oils often require really harsh chemicals to clean, like mineral spirits, those kinds of things. They're not healthy for the environment. They're not healthy for you to breathe or have in your home. And one thing I should say before going any further is when someone else is painting with these things, I don't judge them. I'm not trying to judge any other artist out there or what they choose to use. I'm a vegetarian, for instance. My husband eats meat. I don't judge him for eating meat. It's just my personal choice to use eco-friendly materials. So there needs to be art in the world, and whatever someone wants to create with, that's fine. But if they're looking to create a more eco-friendly practice, or if someone who collects art is looking for more eco-friendly pieces in their home, I found that when I returned to art after many, many years away, that those art materials I was using weren't good for the environment. It's not good to pour acrylic paint or oil paint down the sink. Wastewater treatment plants have a really hard time pulling that out, and then it goes back into the waterways and impacts
Mm.
ecosystems. It's also, both those materials also off gas in our homes. Acrylics can off gas formaldehyde for up to 6 months. Oils can off gas VOCs for up to 12 months or longer. And so in my home, we're just trying to reduce those chemicals, reduce those impacts. Full disclosure, we've had some fertility challenges, and so we were just trying to cut all that out. And the way I thought about it too is I didn't want to create art that negatively impacted the environment and then also might negatively impact someone else's home. After learning more about other paint mediums, I have turned fully to watercolor paint, and I understand that also from a making perspective that they're a more difficult medium and not everybody wants to use watercolor. Gouache is another good option for people that are looking for more eco-friendly paint, but I paint entirely with watercolors now, and I choose pigments that are eco-friendly. So there are still some pigments, no matter what type of paint you're using, acrylic, oil, gouache, watercolor, that have harsh metals and stuff in them that aren't good for your health. They're not necessarily good for ecosystems. So luckily my paint now is all eco-friendly. More and more brands are coming out with more eco-friendly paint too. There's an awareness that's increasing. I've seen it even over the last 3 or 4 years. There are brands that do all entirely eco-friendly paint. So there's a US company called Natural Earth Paints, and they make actually an earth-based acrylic. So it's not petroleum-based. It's a little more expensive than basic acrylic paint, but if you're looking to create a more eco-friendly space, a healthier space for your home, or even someone who collects art and is looking to get art made, those are all things to consider. Look at other options. Water-based oil paint is also growing too, rather than oil-based oils. And I think that gives me hope, just as people become more aware, as people have more ingenuity with how to create different alternatives, more and more eco-friendly and sustainable options are coming out, which is pretty
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And can you tell us maybe if we're talking to people that had no idea and they have everything basically that they could just buy from their most accessible stores, what would be like, in your opinion, like the most eco-friendly way to like transition towards more eco-friendly alternatives?
The number one rule I tell everybody is, and you can probably relate to this, sustainability isn't perfect. Just do the best that you can. And we're thinking through reduce, reuse, recycle, those three main principles. And so the number one thing is use whatever you have in your drawers already. I'm an artist. I talk with a lot of artists. We're very good at hoarding materials and not ever using them. So that's my number one recommendation is use what you already have in your home, even if it's acrylic, even if it's oil, use that up and then start to transition to more eco-friendly options. There are also lots of reuse centers in bigger cities. So in Boulder, for instance, we have a place called Art Parts where people bring their old art materials and you can purchase those and essentially reuse through that economy option. If you're going to your art store, the most environmentally friendly options are going to be watercolor and then gouache. I know they're a different type of medium. They're a little harder to use, but if you put time into learning how to use them, they'll be healthier for the environment and for your home. And then, like I said, those other manufacturers now that are doing more eco-friendly options, most of them are actually online. They don't have in-store fronts, and so they'll ship hopefully directly to people's homes. I don't know if they ship internationally, so I know that gets a little complicated when we're talking to people who are all over the world. But
Yeah.
if people in France, for instance, can't get them right now, but they keep reaching out, eventually they'll be like, oh, we should ship to France. So it's
Yeah.
all about consumer pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And what they
Yeah.
are, yeah, the feedback that they're receiving from their community. There was
Yeah.
in a previous episode with Alex Shield, you were talking about like the power of just feedback to a manufacturer and how you can change. Like you can say to a brand you've been, buying things from over the years, like just, oh, by the way, why did I receive so much packaging in things that I've received? And just
Yes.
asking for that question that I think not a lot of people get to just, I don't know, out of time pressure or whatever, or not thinking that this is a possibility, that actually businesses listen to their audience. It can be something to just like, yeah, they do listen, especially the ones that are, open to change and to just having, flexibility in their supply chain. So yeah, I love that part of like, yeah, you can always like go to your businesses and just give them feedback in ways that you think, you could together improve their eco-friendly practices.
Yeah, I love that about Alex. She's so good about sharing that, hey, these are some ways that you can create a more sustainable chain for your product. She's really good about that. And I think likewise, companies that you choose not to work with and share the reasons why. There are several print companies in the United States that I was testing out in the beginning. And I asked them, I was like, hey, could you send it with less packaging next time? And they often would tell me no. And I'd say, okay, thank you. You don't get my business right now. And so
There
I
you go.
think if they hear that from enough people, then they'll look into more sustainable packaging options.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. End of last year, published, I think it was the 18th of December 2025, you posted a reel that went a little bit viral. Can you tell us about it?
Yes. So it got over 1 million views. It was a little crazy. I had never gone viral before, and I never expected to ever go viral. In the United States, we have a card pass that gets people into our national parks. Residents, non-residents, tourists, everybody historically has used the same card. And in late 2025, the current United States administration announced that there would be some changes, and the current sitting president was going to be on the cover of the resident Park Pass. And the Park Pass had always, historically, ever since its inception, been a winning photo of one of the national parks. So it was a celebration of the arts, of the photographer that won that competition, that contest. It was publicly voted on too, so it was a public's way to engage in the arts and choosing the winning photo. And overall, that just didn't sit right with me. It didn't sit right with my community. We appreciate having nature's beauty on our access pass to our public lands. And I created a sticker to go over it, and it went viral. It was really crazy. It's been crazy. It's been a crazy 8 months.
It's incredible. And I think it's a lot of the times in my field of social media, it can be painted as such a negative force for humanity, which it is in some ways, of course. But in those moments, I'm like, okay, it reminds us that we are connected through these, sorts of storytelling and just, yeah, in our activism, I guess. Maybe can you tell us now your views, I guess, on like the connection between art and activism?
I think art is incredibly important for activism. I think there are great examples in history where artists moved and created entire cultural movements. As a writer, Jane Austen's a great example of a woman who changed things for women throughout history. Banksy is another modern painter from nowadays who's really shining the light on injustices and inequalities. And so art activism, whether it's through dance or music or writing or painting, is such a powerful part of community. I think artists, because we are very perceptive and observant people and sometimes come from the fringes of society, we spend a lot of time with diverse groups. We see where societies can improve and communities can improve, and we shine a light on that pretty quickly.
Absolutely love it. And I think, I mean, going back to your viral post, when you look at the comment section, you can tell like the reaction. This is the activism part of it. It's that your piece was obviously fighting against something that was unfair and just way out of line by the American government. I think now is the time for people that feel kind of repressed in their expressing their ideas, going back to the beginning of our conversation around like creativity in general and art. Now is the time, if you've got an idea, if you've got something to say, to express it within your means of, creativity and art. And I absolutely love that because your piece resonated with so many different people in the comment section and beyond. So yeah, I absolutely love that.
Well, thank you. And I agree with you. My message around the stickers has changed a little bit from being political protests to now encouraging people because with the stickers, we've made a massive impact. We've sold almost 6,000 of them, and we donate 100% of proceeds to national parks. So we've donated almost $27,000 already to national parks, and thank you. People didn't expect us to do that. You know, a 10% of what our normal donation was would have been fine, but it just didn't sit right with me, to be honest, to keep any of that. It started from a cultural movement place. It was me listening to my community, people who love public lands, and then I couldn't have made it get as big without the community behind it. It was so much more than just me at that point. And we were also drowning. We were like drowning in sticker orders and figuring out how to package so many. And I had volunteers, neighbors, friends, strangers reaching out on social media who would come and pack stickers every weekend at our kitchen table. And
Wow.
now it's been amazing. And now I'm very lucky. I work with a former ranger and his team who fulfill all that so I can get back to my life and painting and the part of the business that I love. But it's evolved now, and the message is more to what you're talking about, that I'm just one small person and I was listening to my community, the world, and I used the skills that I have, my art skills, to do something small that turned into something quite big. And I just want to keep encouraging people that no matter what your talents, your gifts, your skills are, how can you leverage those and put them into play in a way that pushes back against what's currently happening, that inspires hope for others and creates momentum? Because it's all these little small bits. If we all are putting a little bit of energy in, we either A, make it really hard for them to destroy our planet, which is what they're aiming to do, or we succeed, which is pushing them aside completely.
100% agreed. My goodness, we are already at the end of this
This has been so
podcast.
fun.
And well, actually, before the signature question, I would love to ask if there was anything that you wanted to share that you haven't yet shared.
Just want to share that I do have a link for anybody who's interested. It's a little download, a checklist of what to ask an artist about sustainable art, what goes into their work, just to, if you're looking for more sustainable art in your home, it looks at everything from the materials that it's made with, how it's packaged and shipped, all the way to the end when it hangs in your home. And as an artist, that's also a very helpful resource to think through your own practice and how to make it more sustainable. Like I mentioned earlier, sustainability isn't perfect. None of us are perfect. And so little steps, taking off a little chunk at a time and doing a little better every day or every week or every year, all of those are good metrics in the right direction. But yeah, this has been really fun.
Yeah, I've been loving this conversation. If you can tell us in your artistic way, I guess, or not, whatever you decide, what does the world you want to live in look like? And you can bring us into more of a sensory experience if you want to.
Yeah, I love this question. It's very green. It has water. Everyone has clean drinking water. We are seeing species rebound instead of losing them on a regular basis. People have their basic needs met. And going back to the beginning of this conversation, I would say that artists are applauded, they're celebrated, they make a living wage regularly. Those stereotypes around artists aren't there. They are welcomed and appreciated as a really important part of our communities.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jenny. That was such a
Thank,
wonderful conversation. I'm so glad you came on.
thank you so much, Val. Can I ask that question of you too? What does our future world, your ideal world, look like to you?
Yeah, I can reply with I see it very lush even in cities. I see plants and trees going around buildings that have already been thought with a sustainability angle. And I see us more connected to each other, knowing our neighbors, helping our neighbors, sharing goods and materials, and spending a little bit less time at work, more connected to our arts and ourselves, essentially. That's how I like to see it.
I love that. I want to live in your future world.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It was so good. I will chat with you on Instagram, and yeah, can't
That
wait
sounds great.
to continue seeing your arts online.
Well, thank you, Val. Thanks so much for having me. This was really special and a lot of fun.